Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This show is one of them. We also have a Facebook group of like minded people committed to spiritual growth and transformation, and we would love to have you join us. You can check us out at liveauthentically.today/FB. I am also super pumped because I just launched my first book this year. It's called SOAR. SOAR. It's on Amazon, and it's a spiritual journey through a very transformative event in my life and shows how I partnered with the universe to create my new reality and get to a place of soaring. And I believe this is something that anybody can do, regardless of your reality. You can completely redesign your life and get to a place of soaring. So check it out next time you're on Amazon. And I am super excited to have with us on our show today, Jean Walters. Hi, Jean.
Hi.
I'm so happy to have you here. Super excited to hear about your story and all about Akashic Records. This is something I don't know much about, and I would love to learn more. And but before we get started talking about your story, I always like to ask my guests the same question at the beginning of my shows, and that question is, what does it mean to you to live authentically every day?
I think it's about being honest with myself, first of all, but also with everybody else.
Mhm.
And I think it's about striving for your highest truth, as you already have done and explained, but also encouraging other people to do the same. I think it's about making choices every day about who you want to spend time with, what you want to do, and how you're directing your life. I think many people let life direct them instead of them directing life. And I think that it is not living authentically. That is really just following the mob. And so, anyway, I think it involves a lot of different things, but honesty is at the base of it all. Living in integrity. If you say something and then you do it, if you speak your word, and that's your word, and then you hold yourself to it. So there's a lot of components, I think, but it's all about honesty.
I love that. And so, have you always lived in this authentic place, or has it been a kind of a journey to get there?
Well, I think I woke up and probably fairly young, late 20s, 30s, somewhere around there. And I woke up and realized that I was following what I call the yellow brick road, which is I was following what I was taught, what I was told, do this, do that, get married, have kids, whatever. And I woke up at that point realizing that all I've done is follow what everybody else was doing, and I wasn't really connected to myself. And so that was the beginning of my journey. And I that's when I started studying spirituality, metaphysics, and really understanding what it's all about, what we're made of, how it works, what the system is, what is the universal system, and how do we manage ourselves in that. So that was my beginning. That was sort of like my want to say my birth. That's
Mhm.
when my life actually began. So that was a long time ago, by the way. Anyway, so that was, I would say, that was when I learned about authenticity, about really connecting to yourself. And I think a lot of people are still wandering around, following. This whole last year has been about following somebody else's lead. Be afraid of this, be anxious about that. And I think it's such a shame because there's been a lot of resources wasted by spending our time in fear. And
Right.
so that's one of I've written a few books too, and one of the last ones was the journey from anxiety to peace. That sort of came out of my background of living with a mother that was very, very anxious.
Okay.
So, and how I kind of moved beyond that I made a vow to myself that I was going to find another way to live because I wasn't going to live that way. And so that was one of those commitments, I made and I kept. And I
Yeah.
shared it with the world and then the book. So anyway, a little
Amazing.
story.
Amazing. So yeah, I love that whole idea of making the journey, the shift from anxiety or fear into peace. And obviously, I mean, everybody's journey looks different, and there isn't kind of an easy button to press and get to that place. But
Yeah.
what are some words of wisdom that you can share with our viewers and listeners to begin to make that shift from anxiety into peace?
One of the things I would say is to start questioning things. instead of just following the path that everybody else follows, ask yourself a question: is this right? Does it work for me? Is this authentic? Is this we have to start questioning. And when people tell you this is right or this is the truth, we have to ask our own question: is it really true? And then we have to begin our own investigation. And I mean that we go inside, we meditate, we learn how to be quiet, we learn how to be with ourselves, because a lot of people don't know how to be alone. And I think it really keeps them from growing, because there's a place within that is so powerful. And you know that because you wrote a book called Soar. And so we have that ability to connect with our inner self. I call it our higher self, our space of stillness. And that's where we can get our answers. And that's when we can find our own path. And it takes courage, because we're kind of breaking away from the mob, the tribe, as it were. And we find our own path that way. But there's nothing more exalting than that also.
Right. Right. Thank
So
you.
spending some time learning how to be quiet is a really big effort to finding your true self.
And what are some things people can do on a daily basis to start to connect to their higher selves and start to shift into that place of stillness and be okay with it? Because, I agree, we are just, so many people are in fear of being alone, right? So many people are bored or, scared to be lonely or scared to be by themselves. And just how do you get comfortable? What can you start to do to get comfortable with being alone and being by yourself and really finding peace in that?
Yes. Well, one of the things that is, I think, is very helpful is to be in nature, because nature has a certain rhythm and vibration to it. And if you are worked up about something, the easiest, simplest way is to move into nature, because the rhythm and flow of nature is going to help you calm down. And then but secondly, when you're at the place that you can begin this, spend some time in meditation. And many people just start with recordings where they just jump into recorded meditations, not medication. And then and that's a beginning. But then you want to get to the point where you can sit still and be quiet, and your ego voice, as I call it, the chatter, is no longer bothering you. But it takes time and it takes discipline to do that. I think it's important to pay attention to what we're watching on TV and what we're listening to on the radio and so forth, and what movies we're watching, because there's an energy to each one of those. And if we're watching all the things on TV that are scary, and that means the news, if we're spending too much time in front of that, we're going to have anxiety attacks. And it's where you put your mind. Because I was talking to someone just earlier, and she's getting a new job. She starts Monday. And I said, how exciting. And she said, it's so scary. And I said, well, can you convert that to excitement? Because you have a new job, new life, new beginning. It's January. Everything is new. Can you find a way to direct your mind into all the possibilities of how it could be wonderful? Because that will change your fear of, what if they don't like me? What if I can't do it? To the possibility of, this can be an exciting new start. And I know that she's talented and brilliant and capable. And so it's up to her to take this mind that we have and put it where we want it to be.
Yeah.
I choose peace. I say that a lot. I choose peace. I choose peace. And I think that that's something we have to train ourselves to do, because we can listen to too much of the scary stuff. And, it's been proven that most of our fears will never happen. Probably 90+% will never happen. And so to spend your time invested in an energy that's going to keep you upset does not make sense, when we could take our mind and go, it's cold out today, but I'm going to take a little walk anyway, and I'm going to enjoy just fresh air. That could be just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and it'll shift your whole mind.
Right. And it's all about moving from the unconscious way of living into conscious, right? Making these conscious choices.
Absolutely.
Life is just a steady stream of opportunities to make a choice, right? Do we make a choice that keeps us in contraction mode, keeps us disconnected from our higher selves?
Yeah.
or do we make a choice that moves us into expansion mode? Like, you said, how do I choose peace, right? So that's a conscious decision. It's
Yeah.
easy to get pulled down into the lower vibrational emotions, such as fear or doubt or guilt or
Yeah.
shame or blame. And that's generally where the masses kind of hang out. I mean, there's a lot of misery stacking going on, and
Yeah.
negativity and all of that. And just there's a contagious element to that too. But the positive things, the higher vibrational things gain momentum in much the same way, right?
Mhm.
So we have to first choose to replace, to move from fear into peace, or move from those lower vibrational emotions into higher vibrational emotions, such as peace
Exactly.
and love and, and truth and connection and all of those, joy, all of those higher vibrational emotions.
Yeah.
But that's a choice. We have
Mhm.
to consciously make that choice. And sometimes that's not very easy, right? But when we start to tune into how we feel, then the choices become a little bit more natural and more organic. So I'd love to hear you talk about tapping into how you feel, because I know that's such a big piece of the journey.
Yes.
Really getting in touch with your intuition and how you feel spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful, actually, what you said. And I love the idea that when you said fear, it's constrictive and love is expansive. I mean, it's
Yeah.
that's so what do we need to do to move into expansive energy? Appreciation, gratitude, joy. Just we can send love notes to people. We can send one to ourselves. To get into feeling is it can be as simple as just stopping, moving from your head to your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And because the heart is your highest intelligence. And when you move into your heart, you will feel a completely different array of energy than you do in your head. We have grown up in a fear-based world. And so everything is like gloom and doom, or take this medicine because you might have an ache in your knee or something, and then we take the medicine and it destroys the liver or whatever. So we have this crazy system, and we have to keep questioning it. But when you go to your heart and say, is this really right for me? You might get a different answer. So learning how to feel heart energy, and we might think heart energy is love, and it is, but it's so much more than that. Moving into your heart will connect you to your intuition. But the other thing is, when you meditate, when you spend quiet time with yourself and just go in to your inner space, you are developing your intuition, and your intuition is never wrong. Put me on record, never wrong.
Agree.
And it's connecting you to feelings. And pretty soon you're able to discern what is a high feeling, what is coming from a higher place, and what is just a feeling of, oh my gosh, exasperation or impatience or guilt or any of those things, because those are more mind oriented than they are feeling oriented. The feeling follows the mind, but what we want to do is move into our deepest feeling of joy, love, connection, and then operate our life from there. And
Mhm.
that just it takes discipline, really. It takes discipline and paying attention to where am I putting my focus right now?
Right.
Yeah.
It is a
And
practice. Yeah, it is absolutely a practice of training the mind, right? It's training the mind to,
yeah.
run your thoughts through the filter of, does this serve me, right? Does this move me forward? Does this keep me in expansion mode? And
Mhm.
if not, replace it with a different thought. And I
That's right.
realize that it may not always be that straightforward. I mean, it may be difficult to do that. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about, you mentioned appreciation, right? Appreciation being one of the higher vibrational emotions, appreciation, gratitude. And I so firmly believe, in order to get yourself unstuck, get yourself out of a really low place, that's the first thing to do, is move to a thought of appreciation. But what
Absolutely.
what words of advice, wisdom, consolation do you have for people, guidance about, let's just say somebody's having a really, really hard time right there, right now? We've all been at, low points in our life before. We've
Mhm.
all hit our version of rock bottom. And how do you, let's say someone says, what, everything is not going my way. How
Mhm.
can you help them choose a thought of appreciation, or shift into that mindset of appreciation?
Well, there could be multi levels to that, but I want to say this, that when just what you said, everything's not going my way, and what if my way is not the way? And so sometimes we have to drop the idea that I'm in control of everything and it's supposed to go the way I want it to go. Because I think the universe has many, many blessings for us and opportunities to grow way beyond our own little picture of things. And so what I do is I help people say, well, tell me what the blessing is in it going this way rather than that way. What is the blessing? How can you look at this and recognize the opportunity that's being offered to you right now? And usually, with some guidance, I can help them find that way. But the second thing is that when you are in gratitude, you cannot be in fear.
Mm-hmm.
So your mind can only be in love or fear, and gratitude is part of love. So if you're in gratitude, you can't be in fear. So a gal called me and she was just in a panic attack. She said, I'm just so afraid. I'm so afraid. Tell me something to do. Well, I was with a bunch of people at the time. I said, well, I can just tell you this one thing. Start being grateful for everything, your house, your family, everything. And then your mind cannot hold on to the fear any longer.
Right.
So I love that because it's a quick shift, but at the same time, we can't think straight when we're in fear. We're illogical, we don't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the false evidence appearing real, that's fear. We're living in an illusion. And so to do something quickly to shift ourselves in gratitude is the greatest way to do it. It's phenomenal. I just think we have so many things to be grateful for. Oh my gosh, especially living in the United States, as crazy as we are right now here. We live good lives. We live really good lives,
Really do. But I think that sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that perspective, right?
Yeah.
The perspective of where we fall relative to everything else. And it is important to just stop every once in a while and look around and sit in stillness and really be grateful and shift into appreciation. And that moves us into this place of living mindfully, right? Just really absorbing the joy and the amazingness of every single moment in front of us.
I like to think about the idea of a baby. When a baby first comes into the world, they're just like, oh, wow. Whoa, everything's sort of awe-inspiring because they might look at their hand and go, whoa, I don't know, but that's great. Go back to the wonderment of baby and realize that was a blank slate. We didn't have any programming in there. And so what we want to do is start looking at the programming we've accepted and try to go back into that sense of awe and wonderment. Because then everything's kind of exciting, open and magical. And, and we begin to learn to look at things differently than how we were taught, by our teachers, by the television, by, all kinds of things. And so we really need to rearrange a few things to get back into a state of peace.
Yeah, for sure.
Babies are peaceful unless they're taught otherwise. Yeah.
True.
That's why Jesus said, walk into the kingdom as a child, because they're wide open and just ready to receive whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And what a great state of mind that would be.
Right. To be in that allowing mode, that mode of allowing, just allowing to whatever is in your highest good to come your way. Yeah. And kind of release that my way mentality, right? Because that's control, and control is fear-based. So moving into that place of trust and faith and surrender. And life is so much sweeter when we just show up. I mean, our job is pretty simple, right? Our job is pretty simple. We just need to show up with, an open mind, open heart, and willing to learn and grow, have some fun along the way. And then life becomes a lot more simple.
Yeah. Well, one of my clients told me a long time ago, he said he contracted an illness. And he said to me, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And why is that? And he said, well, I really looked at my life and decided I've always wanted to be a clown. And so he said, I decided to be a clown. So he got the clown costume and makeup, and then he went to these little events and was a clown. And he said, I was so happy. And he would have ignored that. He would have ignored that desire to just clown. And I thought that was pretty awesome. So it was illness that brought him that awareness, that helped him to start asking those kind of questions and helped him move into a different kind of life modality.
Yeah, love that. And we all have those.
It happens a lot,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
and we
think,
all have those heart awakening catalysts of different magnitudes, right? And they're an opportunity. They're an opportunity for us to pause and say, you know what, do I want to go back to that same path that I was on, or do I want to choose a new path? Do I
yeah,
want to let go of the things that are holding me back and keeping me out of authenticity, such as fear and doubt and judgment, right? You know, with those thoughts that keep us stifled and step into our authentic realities, which is
yeah,
where we really start to become untethered and
yeah.
empowered and liberated and unstoppable.
Mhm.
And then when we start down that path, there's just a momentum that just cannot be experienced through
Yeah,
the
yeah,
egoic reality.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, and it's fun. Besides all that, it's fun.
Right. Yeah, it is. It is. So I would love to next dive into more what you do with Akashic Records. This is something I don't know much about, and I'm super curious about it. So I would love to. We can do just kind of an Akashic Records 101, just kind of what is it? Why are they important? How can they help us unlock, unlock our true selves, etc. So I'll just turn it over to you to talk about that.
All right. Well, great. First of all, Akasha is a Sanskrit word, and Sanskrit is the oldest language there is, but Akasha means that element, that substance in which we live, breathe, and have our being. So we know that scientists tell us that we do live in this one field of energy called the quantum field. The Akasha is that field, and everything we've ever done or thought or acted on is recorded within that field. And so, if we're wanting to understand why I have a particular pattern, for instance, in my life, we might go back and into that quantum field or into the Akasha and ask that question, and then be something will show up. Sometimes it's a past life. Sometimes it's something that happened in this life that we misconstrued or that we made a story out of, and then we have the opportunity then to look at it differently and realize that we can change all that. So to me, the value of the Akashic Records is to recognize what some of these energy patterns are that have been recorded, that you've recorded, and
Mhm.
then to use them as a way of changing where you are or where you want to be. So sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's a past life where maybe I've seen a few people who had some kind of abuse in a past life. And what it did, it gave them a consciousness of why they've accepted abuse in this lifetime, which
Okay.
helped them to change the way they go forward. So that's just a small example. But also, I think we all have sort of potentials and tendencies. I've been a teacher my entire life since I was really young. I had a twin sister, then I was always like, Jean, go teach Jane. She didn't get this lesson from school. And so I would sit down with her and I would come up with ways that I could point out what was going on. And I just was a little bit further ahead all the time. And so, but I see that as my teacher self was born early in life. And then I've just been teaching ever since. So I think that's in my record. I mean, I think I've always been a teacher of some sort. And so it shows up naturally in all kinds of situations. So that's just a little, but we have lived every kind of life. I mean, the thing is, when we think about forgiveness, when we look at somebody and we judge them, we live that same life somewhere along the lines. And so
Mhm.
I think it also helps broaden our perspective on, you know, we're living a certain kind of life. We're very fortunate. We live in the United States. I mean, I think we're very fortunate. I've been all over the world, and I think, we have an awful lot going on here. Um, and yet we've probably lived in poverty. We've probably been beggars. We've probably done all kinds of things that we would consider like seamy or not very nice. But at the same time, understanding that helps us see differently people that are going through struggles. And maybe it gives us a little bit more compassion. So that to me is the value of the Akashic readings. It's just our readings are just the Akasha in general is to give us a greater understanding. It broadens our view, and I think it helps us see that we've probably been Oriental and Black, and we've probably been rich and we've been poor, and we've done it all, and so we have no business judging anybody.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So how does one go about using the information that comes out of the
Okay.
reading? And how can they incorporate that or assimilate that into their life to fuel their transformation?
Well, one of the things I do when I do a reading, because I'm very practical, I'm very, very practical and pragmatic. So when I do a reading, I always end it with, what is this person to do with this? What meaning does this person, what can this person get from this reading, from this understanding that they,
Mhm.
and then to me, that's the most important part is because of what you've been through. And sometimes we come in with unlearned lessons, with things that we haven't completed. And so by looking at those records, we have a chance to say, well, this is your chance now to learn forgiveness, or this is your chance now to. There was read a book where a guy had gone between lives, and he realized that he had been an abuser, and so he came into this lifetime as a woman who was abused. And he said it completely changed his perspective on abuse. And so I feel like that's a pretty radical example. But at the same time, if it caused him to become a compassionate, caring, genuine person, then that was exactly right. And so we've all benefited from him making that change. And I think that's the value of it. I always ask, what is the value of this now for this person? Because it doesn't matter to me if they've been a prince or a pauper or, or a dance queen or a soap seamstress or whatever. None of they might bring those talents in with them, but at the same time, it's what do you do with it now? How does it enrich your soul? How can you take it forward? And that's the most important part. And it's different for each person.
Mhm. So when you do the reading, then do you continue to work with people then on an ongoing basis to kind of unpack and assimilate all of the information
Yeah.
and help them figure out how they can reprogram
Yeah.
themselves to respond differently?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I do work with, if they're ready, then I definitely do. And people are at different levels of readiness,
Okay.
because I think it takes courage to completely change your life. Um, if you're like recognizing that the tribe you're in is not a healthy place to be, it takes a lot of courage to walk away from that, or to change, or to be the odd one out. And so each person is different as far as what their willingness is. To me, there's no other way to be, because I saw what fear does, and how it basically ruined my mother's health.
Mhm.
And then so I have no interest in living that kind of a life. But people don't see it as radically perhaps as I do, that this makes sense and that doesn't. So
Mhm.
it's about courage, and how much are you willing to move yourself forward. And you know that you wrote the book Soar, so you you had to have been through a few experiences yourself.
Yeah. So I'm one, and like you said, I will wholeheartedly echo that it takes a lot of courage to step into that place to completely overhaul your life. Have you ever worked with someone who did a reading and didn't and chose not to change, chose to stay in their current reality?
Absolutely. It happens regularly. I have a really good friend, and she tells people all the time, when I got a reading from Jean, I thought she was crazy. I thought that she didn't know what she was talking about, et cetera, et cetera. And she said, I put it in the drawer. It was taped at the time, fortunately. I put it in the drawer, and then 6 months later, I pulled it out and listened to it. And she went, oh my God, she was so right.
Mhm.
So the thing I tell people all the time is, use what you can. If you're not ready, it's okay. And later on you'll probably go, oh my gosh, but if she, because I'm working from a very deep level, and people aren't always ready to hear that. I've got my nice little comfy life, and I'm gonna make believe that it's all kosher and hunky dory, and
Yeah.
then you come along.
And I think that's one of the most important, at least that was a huge turning point for me too, is, as a healer, as a teacher, as, an awakener, I'm so obviously I'm all about growth and transformation. And I want everyone to be reduced to this and embark on this. But, it's not my job. I mean, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. I view it as, the best thing I can do. The analogy I always use is watching a flower bloom, right?
Mhm.
Everything in nature kind of gets done on its own timetable. Some flowers bloom early spring, late spring, summer, fall, etc. And, if we try to pry the petals open, we're
Mhm.
going to end up crushing it. I mean, the best thing we can do for someone is just to become a silent observer in their reality, right? Just
Mhm.
one of the most evolved spiritual teachers the world has seen they've just put out their buffet, right?
Yeah.
And said, you know what? It's here. It's here when you're
Yeah.
hungry, right? It's here when you are ready
Yeah.
to come, and it will always be here. But it doesn't work if we try to force someone down that path of growth and transformation.
No, and one of my favorite things is when I see people really, they learn a little bit themselves. And so they're so excited, they become a zealot. And then they're going to change their whole family. And then, of course, they're shunned. And that's, I tell them exactly what you just said. Everybody has their time and their moment, and you can't shove it down people's throats, and you have to honor where they are. And I, they'll see somebody like in a begging mode, and they want to go fix it and help them, and they think it's going to change their whole life. And I go, no, let them be where they need to be right now. What they're experiencing is valuable, and
Right.
you can't, it's not fair for you to say it's not, because then you're in their life trying to rearrange their life. Well, of course, what they're doing is keeping from rearranging their own life.
Right. Right. And
Yeah.
then they're not learning, right? If they're not the ones feeling, the depth of their experience, then, and we jump in and swoop in and try to be the fixer, then they're not learning. And that doesn't,
Yeah.
growth and transformation only happens when it's fueled from within, right? Not when somebody else is on the outside trying to organize or re-engineer our lives a certain way.
Yes. Yes, exactly. But at the same time, that's the lesson.
Right.
That's a lesson. Like, you're trying to re-engineer their life, but you haven't re-engineered your own. And that's where it gets painful, because they want to direct out here instead of in here.
Right.
They tell me I laugh a lot. I do laugh a lot, but they'll tell me the most horrendous stuff, and I'll just start laughing, and I'll go, well, this is what I'm seeing,
Yeah.
I can get them even through laughter and looking at the light side of things. I can oftentimes people will change. They go, I guess I am making it bigger than it is, or I guess I am that in the way of my own growth right now. So
Yeah.
sometimes we just have to learn to be light with it too. Like, okay.
I'm so glad that you said that. I'd love to talk about that for a little bit, just the importance of laughter, kind of keeping things light, because I think sometimes people have the belief, and I know I did at prior points in my evolution, that spirituality needs to be serious, right? It needs to be somber. It needs to be, just again, like super serious, but we can laugh, we can learn to laugh, and we can bring, levity to it and lightness. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about the value of that, because I think sometimes people feel like it's not appropriate to laugh at certain things, or they feel guilty that they should be taking things more seriously. And I'd love to hear you talk about the value of laughter and humor.
Well, it is so important. One of my favorite things is somebody will be talking about their spouse, and he does this or she does this, whichever way it is, she does this and he does this. And I start laughing because they're doing the exact same thing that they're mad at their spouse for doing. And so I let it go on for a while, and then I start laughing, and I go, why are you laughing? I go, well, you just described yourself. And then they go, oh my gosh, it's true. So it's very funny. But I think that everything has a light side to it. I think yesterday there was some crazy stuff going on in Washington. And I thought, oh my gosh, if later we're going to think, what was I thinking? What was going on in my mind that I would think some trashing a government building was somehow helpful? So I think that we get dramatic and radical. And then and everybody does it in their life sometime or other. And I think when you step back and go, what have I been doing? What is that about? We can start laughing. We have to, actually. We just have to. And so I think that's why comedians are in the world. So they give us a different slant on things, and then we start looking at things going, well, I did make a bigger deal out of that than I could have.
Yeah.
are the what again, even just looking at what was the value of being sick, or what was the value of this whole last year, 2020. I say that we were sent to our rooms for a while, to look at our behavior and figure it out. So in a way, that's one way of looking at it, that we might even say God sent us to our room for a while so that we could review our behavior. But I think it was a time of getting into ourselves a little bit more, getting into that quiet space. But sometimes we can laugh at that and go, yeah, I was quarantined in my room for a little bit, and it's all about what did I learn from that and how did I grow from that. So then it's not so dastardly and like awful.
Right. And it's about reframing, right? It's about finding the gift, right? Every experience, there's a hidden gift. We just have to find it.
I guarantee it. There's a gift, I guarantee it.
But it takes work to look for it, right? It's easier to kind of stay in that negativity, but we can reframe any experience and find the purpose. We can find the meaning. We can find the gift in it.
Well, even with my mom, I use in the journey from anxiety to peace, I use the example of my mom. She was such a wreck growing up. She could worry about absolutely everything. And I would use to accuse her of making a hangnail into cancer. I mean, her imagination was vast, and she always came up with a negative connotation. But then I looked at that and went, how are you her? That's a great question. How are you her? Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can be very critical, and that was one of the eye-opening things that helped me change a lot, is I realized I have more of her in me than I wanted to admit, Okay. But at the same time, I thought, well, that's my door opening, because now I'm aware of it, and now I can catch myself and go, is that really the way you want to look at that? Is that really the judgment you want to carry? And I just made a huge sweep in my life and my ego to make a choice that I had to come up with another method. And that's exactly what I did. But to me, that has so much value. And we can look back and go, girl, you just did the very same thing you criticized,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Opportunities for just heightened awareness all around, right?
Yeah. Yes.
If
we're not going for that, why are we here?
Right.
I mean, if we're not looking to grow and expand and be in a better place, and when we say high self, we're talking about high. We're talking about high energy. We're talking about joy. We're talking about love. We're talking about high energy, appreciation. So if we're not hanging out here to grow in that aspect, then what's the point? Mm-hmm. And that's what I realized a long time ago, is this is the schoolroom.
Yeah.
This is a schoolroom. Sometimes we get sent to the corner,
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. I have the same views. We're here to love and to grow, have fun along the way. Yeah. And then it's so much simpler, but it can get complicated fast. I mean, I've gotten wrapped up in that in various points in my life before. It just gets complicated, just trying to take care of everything. And sometimes we lose sight of what's really important and our values. And we have to re-anchor and recenter and reground. And we can do that by, again, sitting in stillness. Like we talked about, just sitting in stillness, being with ourselves, being okay with being alone, minimizing distractions, right? Unplugging from technology.
Yeah.
All of that just plays a huge role in connection. But if we don't, then we stay stuck in that place of the ego, and we keep looking for peace and happiness in kind of all the wrong places.
Yeah, you can't find it in the ego, but you have to find it someplace else. But the other thing is letting go is sometimes when things get too overwhelming, we need to walk away. Yeah. We just walk away. We need to go to a movie. We need to just do something completely different. I always tell people, if you're sitting, get up. If you're walking, run. I mean, change something right then and let go and let your mind take a break. Just take a break. And then later you'll come back with freshness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? I know you do such amazing work with your clients. You're a published author. What's on tap for you?
I just published this book in December.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's the Magic and Mystery of Dreams, the ultimate handbook in interpreting your day and night dreams and the symbols in your life. So in this book, it's not just about interpreting dreams, which I love. I love dreams because they're so right on. the beautiful thing about dreams is that they speak truth. They're absolutely truthful, and they never mince anything. And they are coming straight from your own psyche. So it's not anyone telling you, well, girl, you could have cleaned that up a little bit better. They're coming straight from you. And so the wisdom in your dreams is phenomenal. So in the book, I have how to work with your dreams, how to remember your dreams, and also how to look at your family as a dream, how to look at each person in your family and see which was the dominant person and what did they represent to you. And then why are you in this group and what does that mean to you in your growth? So that's pretty cool. It's a really cool exercise. It's very eye-opening. And also then to take you farther in your current family, and that could be your work family or the people you hang out with in that family. What are the symbols that are showing up there? Are they the same symbols that were in your family of origin, or are they different? And you can see how things have changed, in what ways you've grown, and maybe in what ways you haven't. You might have some of the same negative qualities showing up. Who knows? But at the same time, it gives us a little bit of a roadmap. And then also I get into archetypes in here because I think you said that you were a teacher and a healer. You said healer. And so you have an archetype like that. I do too. And then we each have archetypes, which once we understand what they are, they kind of, we can sort of acquiesce to that. I have a pattern for problem solving, or I have a pattern for an engineer, or a problem, to soar. So, and also how to look at the holy books symbolically. So it's Sunday, I'm going to be doing a guest sermon at one of the churches here, and it's going to be on the woman at the well. And so that's a story that in John, and I'm going to use symbology. We are the woman at the well.
Okay.
Yeah. And what does that mean? Yeah. And so, and I like doing that a lot because most people grab it, they get it, and it has a meaning for them. Because when we just read a book or the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita or any of the holy books and just read these stories, we don't understand that those stories are really about us. So the book, this book on symbology is deep. And by the way, you mentioned I could give you an offer. I do want to, anybody that emails me at my address, I will send them 3 chapters of this book so that they can kind of poke around and see if it's something that will help them get clearer with themselves, or, if that can be a tool for their awakening.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for
offering that. Jean at spiritualtransformation.com.
Okay.
So, yeah. And just email me, say, I heard the show, I'm interested in the book, and I will send you, anyone, 3 chapters.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, we've had an opportunity to talk about such super deep topics here today, and I feel like I could talk about this stuff for hours, but want to respect your time. But before we wrap up here, do you have any words of wisdom that you would like to share about anything regarding spirituality or the work that you do to help people on their own journeys?
Well, it's really important right now to become. I think it's super important that we make a commitment to ourselves to step back and learn to look at things a little bit more objectively. It's not life or death right now. It is a time for change. And I think that if we just allow ourselves to address that and let it be a joyful change, let it be, we're improving, we're moving forward. This time is about compassion, I think. I think that because of all the things that have happened last year and are coming forward now, this is time to reach out and help people. And so it could be as simple as opening doors for someone, or buying them their drink, or their coffee, or just in any way checking on your neighbor. But this is a time to come from your heart and to be compassionate. So that's my parting words.
I love that. So beautiful. Well, Well, thank you so much for being here. I so
you.
appreciate your time.
Thank
And
you.
to all of our viewers and listeners, I appreciate you being here as well. As you well know by now, I believe that time is a choice. And I am grateful that you've chosen to be here to listen to everything Jean has had to share with us today. So yeah, I would love to have you check out our books on and grab a copy for yourself. And also would love to have you join my Facebook group at liveauthentically.today/FB. So thanks everyone and have a wonderful day filled with love and light.
Thank
Bye.
you.